Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson. Yes, I had just a little more pep in my step. I feel better today. About a 24 to 36 hour bug, but we made it through. You got the full 90 minutes on Wednesday. You'll get the full 90 minutes tonight or Friday whenever you listen to the show. Recording tonight because I'm heading down to Gulfport tomorrow to go see Cooper Crosby play. That's a new running back that Mississippi State has offered. Looks like it's going to be an Auburn-Mississippi State type battle. He's already got an official visit set up to Auburn, expected to set one up for Mississippi State as well. But, he's in the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star game and is really kind of come into his own. Currently committed to Louisiana Lafayette. That won't stick. He has played his way into some SEC options. So we got to get down there and check him out. Got to get you guys some information. We'll get some pictures, some video, some interviews. We'll do the whole thing and make that available to you Saturday morning. Reminder, it is an open date, and it's a great weekend to have an open date. A lot of great games. We're going to kind of break down the weekend and kind of how I see things going. But, that hadn't been a great year for me against the spread. The winners have been pretty consistent, but not necessarily the covers. And I think when we get into conference play, it becomes maybe a little easier to deal with, maybe. It's so difficult when somebody's favored by 48 because you never know their motivation in the fourth quarter. Do we want to put the Bandits in to get some playing time? Do we want to keep the starters in to get some semblance of rhythm on offense? You just never know. But nevertheless, I'm not crying about it. It is what it is. I got a cool top 10 list, a suggestion to kind of go with our open theme this week. I had something else planned, but I like their idea better. So we'll have that and talk about some things going around in college athletics, but also, too, I heard some very disturbing news today about some things happening within our state and others as it relates to recruiting, quote, media. And so we're going to break that down. I'm going to tell you what I've learned, give you some cautionary tales, and kind of explain how the process is supposed to work. There's a lot of people out there that don't have a lot of ethics, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about. They make it harder for the rest of us. They truly do. So I'll share what we've learned in that respect, and we'll talk about some other cool stuff too. We'll be baseball scrimmages on Friday and Saturday, and of course also on Friday, they will announce the rosters and the teams, the draft for the alumni game, bringing that back after several years. Going to be a lot of fun. Team Thunder and Lightning. A lot of Bulldogs headed back to town. Some will coach, some will play. All will have a great time being in Duty Noble Field. I think it's a wonderful thing. If you haven't got your tickets, you need to secure those. So, again, a lot to be excited about. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show. I love it, man. I do. Like, there's some places, like, I just kind of get tired of it after a while. I don't ever get tired of Bulldog Burger Company, and I'll tell you why. It's because of the variance of the menu. There's just so much to choose from there. There's a lot to select, and nothing tastes like anything else, right? I can get whatever I'm craving in many respects at Bulldog Burger Company. I suspect that's the case for you. So maybe you've got a family or a friend group that kind of has a variety of taste. Bulldog Burger Company may be exactly what you need because of the diversity of menu. Get the spring rolls as your appetizer. There's no compromising in that respect. I have seen some of you as of late. You're looking a bit haggard, and I can tell you haven't paid a visit to Bulldog Burger Company and had those spring rolls. Go ahead and remedy that soon for the betterment of society, and find your own favorites there. If you're a newbie to Bulldog Burger Company, I recommend just getting the Bulldog, right? There's just no way you can go wrong. You can get the Bulldog the rest of your life and feel like that you live life and live life more abundantly. But if you want to branch out on the wild side a little bit, maybe get the Smokehouse. Maybe get the Fresh and 15. Maybe, if you're man enough or woman enough, get the Pimentology, add bacon. Yeah, for sure. And then get that chocolate shake and ride that ride home with a smile. Get that chocolate shake to go. 3 great locations to serve you: University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. And if you go to the one in Starkville, there's maybe a chance you get waited on by my youngest son, Ian. 3 years of experience now at Bulldog Burger Company. We're very proud of him. Very, very proud of that young man. And he'll do a great job for you, and he loves working at Bulldog Burger Company. You wouldn't stay there for 3 years if you didn't. He loves it, feels like it's his family, and I cannot endorse his experience any higher than I do already. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. All right, let's go ahead and just jump right into our SEC weekend preview. It's a great weekend for us to be off because you know how it goes. I mean, some of you guys sit around the tailgate and you're able to watch some games, but either you're traveling to campus or you're traveling to a road game. No travel required this weekend. You can kind of get rested up, and I tell you, I think to myself sometimes this would be a great time, to go take in a big game somewhere else. Maybe call in and get a credential and go hang with some friends or whatever. But, man, I just don't want to travel, when I've got an open date. When I've got a chance to just kind of sit around and watch college football from like 10 in the morning until midnight, I want to be able to do that. That's a rarity for us in the media, or for most of us, some of us. But I'm looking forward to watching college football from start to finish on Saturday. So we'll open up the day with Alabama at Missouri. I think this could be a very interesting game. Alabama is a road favorite by 2.5 in this. Now, Alabama has played better as of late. There has been a lot of herky-jerky stuff, you know what I'm saying, with Alabama during the Kalen DeBoer era. They did beat Vanderbilt last week, and again, I give Vanderbilt and those guys a lot of credit because you know as well as I do, Alabama was so looking forward to getting Vanderbilt back in their backyard and just beating them to sleep, and they didn't do it. Yes, they won the game. Yes, they covered late, but man, that was a real fight. It was 14-all at the break. Missouri, however, though, has played pretty good football this year. And the last couple of years, especially during the Eli Drinkwitz era, they've been incredibly good at home. They're also undefeated as they come into this and defensively playing really well. Kansas put up 31 on them, but nobody else has scored more than 20 points all year. They beat Central Arkansas, as they should, 61-6. They win the rivalry game with Kansas, 42-31. They beat UL Lafayette 52-10, and in South Carolina, that was a bit of a interesting game, 29-20 in favor of the Tigers. And then they blast UMass 42-6. Now, one could make an argument here. Missouri hadn't really played anybody, and that's where I'm going to go. South Carolina, I think, is a good team, not a great team. When they were ranked 13th in the country, I said as much. I thought that was a little bit high. So, yes, Missouri undefeated, playing at home, but I think Alabama gets the win and the cover. I just think in the end that Alabama can pair up in the secondary with those very talented Missouri wide receivers. I think Alabama is good enough in run defense to make this a game that kind of rests on the shoulders of the quarterback. I don't think you're just going to be able to throw it just enough to keep them honest. Listen, they're going to run the football some. I just don't think they're going to have the same level of success against a front seven that Alabama has. So we're going to take the Tide to win and cover. Again, the spread's only 2.5. But, we'll take Alabama to cover. Now, Washington State visits Ole Miss. And, again, because of the fact that even though they're kind of a team without a conference, this still qualifies as the Power 5 mandate because you're grandfathered in that respect. We'll have that opportunity soon, too. But reality of it is that Washington State, I just don't think that they've got enough offensively and certainly not defensively to slow down Ole Miss. I just don't think there is an advantage that can be found on either side of the football. And this is a 3-2 team, but it's kind of a precarious 3-2. They beat the Vandals of Idaho in Week 1, 13-10. I'm sure Mike Leach winced as he witnessed that. 13-10. Well, the next week they kind of get it going. They get San Diego State 36-13. And then the next 2 weeks, defense was somewhat optional. The Mean Green of North Texas beat them 59-10. And then Washington, the rival, gets them 59-24. Now they bounce back after a 2-game losing streak, and they win at Colorado State 20-3. I don't know if you guys are big fans of the Rams, if you follow their football program at all. I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But the Colorado State Rams are 1-3. Yeah, that's where they sit. And so, yeah, it's a win, but it's not a quality win. I just think Ole Miss has too much offensively, and the fact that this Washington State defense has been very challenged on the defensive side, I think Ole Miss wins and covers, and that's asking a little bit much, to be honest with you. Ole Miss favored by 31.5. Right? So we're talking a 5-score game. So I think Ole Miss will probably get it done. Trinidad's kind of got them going there. They're excited. They're ranked number 4 in the country. They should be excited. And they think that, you know what, it's all within our reach. Got a chance to make the playoff. Does Ole Miss make it as a 2-loss team? That's the real question mark, right? I think you have to kind of consider that possibility because I think, you know, the beefier part of Ole Miss's schedule is to come. And yes, they beat LSU, who they consider a rival, who was ranked top 5 at the time, but I think we all know that was kind of a logo ranking. And that's not to take anything away from Ole Miss. LSU is just not as good as some people thought. But after this Washington State game, you got back-to-back road games against top 10 teams. You got to go to Georgia, to Oklahoma. That's tough. Then you got a couple of games that you feel like should be winnable. You get South Carolina and certainly the Citadel. And then Florida, a team that beat Ole Miss last year, who I think is still very athletic, and Billy Napier will be coaching for his job if he hadn't already lost it. So that could be a dicey game. Then you got the Egg Bowl. And so, yeah, you got a couple of games in there in the middle of those, kind of down the stretch, that you feel like should be in your pocket. But in order to make the playoffs, I think you can't lose more than 2. I think a 10-2 Ole Miss team probably makes the playoff. I know you don't want to hear that, but I think that's probably the case. But until we see the rankings, it's difficult to really know. But losing back-to-back games to Georgia and Oklahoma could certainly put a damper on things. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't think a 3-loss Ole Miss team makes it. But, again, it's there for the taking for them. Big ball game in Dallas in the Cotton Bowl is Oklahoma and Texas play in the Red River Shootout, one of the college football's greatest rivalries. And there's still just so much to know, right, about Oklahoma. I mean, what's the availability report show? Let's just pull it up and find out. How about that? Let's just pull it up and find out what they're saying about Oklahoma's injuries. Let's see here. Let's see. As we pull it up and we surmise this together, let's see here. Yeah, the archive is interesting. It truly is. Let's see here. We'll get to Oklahoma. This is week 7, right? Yeah, week 7. John Mateer is questionable for the game. Not out for the game. He is questionable for the game. So that'll be interesting. C.J. Baxter, running back from Texas, is doubtful. That's really the only appreciable injury for them. They got a couple guys at Oklahoma that are out, but some of those guys have been out. But Mateer is questionable. Even at less than 100%, you probably feel good about Oklahoma taking the game. And let's be honest about this. And listen, I don't think that Arch Manning will ever live up to the hype. And that's not a criticism of him. It's really more of a criticism of those that have kind of put in so much on his shoulders that may be unrealistic. You know, again, we go back to the fact that Texas was a preseason number 1 with a first-time starter. He had 2 starts under his belt against Louisiana Monroe and against us. And let's be honest about that. Our defense probably was comparable to Louisiana Monroe last year. And so now he's playing real SEC defenses and he's having some trouble. Oklahoma, of course, also kind of looking for some redemption after a couple challenging years under Brent Venables. They will be ready to play. But the quarterback situation really for both teams, I think, influences this. We're going to take Oklahoma. Texas is favored by 1.5. We're going to take Oklahoma. And I just think Oklahoma is riding high enough mentally where the pressure is not on them but on Texas. If you were preseason number 1 and then heading into week 7, now you're unranked, things are not going well. And as Sark said, hey, listen, we've had to play Ohio State and Florida in the swamp. I agree that's difficult, but when you're a national championship contender, you got to win those games. You do. So we'll take Oklahoma, which I think essentially removes Texas from any playoff contention, even if they would win out. I just don't see any way that they could make it. Arkansas at Tennessee. It's Bobby Petrino 2.0. I was talking to a friend earlier that spent some time at Arkansas when Petrino was here the first time, and we kind of talked a little bit about that. You know, it's like if you'd have told me back then that at some point Bobby Petrino would be the head football coach at Arkansas, I'd never believed it. Now they're at Tennessee. Now, Arkansas has had 2 weeks with some new defensive coaches, with some new offensive wrinkles to kind of figure some things out. Bobby Petrino is an offensive genius. I think most people would say that. He has been a great offensive mind everywhere he's been, with the exception of the Atlanta Falcons. But the reality of this is I think with the open date, I think Arkansas maybe has the element of surprise. They can put some formations and some actions out there that maybe Tennessee hasn't seen. I like Tennessee to win, but I'm going to go with Arkansas to cover. Tennessee favored by 11.5 in this ball game. And you and I both know Bobby Petrino is auditioning for this job. I don't think he gets it. I think there are just too many donors at Arkansas that have long memories that just don't trust Bobby. I think they're happy to have him as an offensive coordinator. I don't know if they feel comfortable with him as the leader of their program. But I think he makes a game of this. Again, Tennessee to win, but Arkansas to cover. Now, Florida is at A&M. This is a game of interest for us. That's a 6 p.m. game on ESPN, so we'll have an opportunity to watch that. We know what A&M looks like defensively. I think they've proven defensively that they're no joke. You know, we just weren't sure how much of their defensive work against Auburn was them or how much of it was Auburn. I think it was a combination of both, but they made us incredibly uncomfortable. One of, if not the most horrific offensive performances of the Jeff Lebby era. And so give them some credit. Yeah, we had some weaknesses and deficiencies. They were able to exploit those. And, of course, kind of a revolving door at offensive tackle. All that factored in, but all that really counts is the final score. A&M is favored by 7.5. Florida is a team that has not had a tremendous amount of success under Billy Napier. Of course, they had that late run last year that kind of saved his job and kind of got people excited. But this is a Gator team that's 2-3. And they beat, I think what we will all agree, is a very incomplete Texas team. Very talented, not getting good quarterback play, been a little bit banged up in the running back room. But to Florida's credit, they have been in every game. They have made these games competitive. Now you say, well, Steve, they should have trounced South Florida. Maybe so. But they didn't. And they lose at LSU 20-10. They lose at Miami 26-7. And then they go back to the Swamp and they win. So they're 2-1 at home and then 0-2 on the road. Well, this game is on the road against a defense that is kind of designed to confuse you. And DJ Lagway has proven to be a guy that struggles with decision-making. And so that could be awfully interesting. I like A&M in the game. A&M, Scooby Williams, still questionable. So A&M looks to be healthy. Florida has several players listed on the availability report. You got 7 players out, and then another 8 that are listed as questionable. So it's a beat-up Florida Gator team, and if you're a Mississippi State fan, that's kind of what you want, right? You hope those guys make a full recovery on October 19th. But this A&M team is very physical. They want to run the football. We want to run the football. Texas wants to run the football. And again, they found a way to get Texas, got out early and kind of put the pressure on Arch Manning. I like A&M to win the game and cover, and I also think because of the physical nature of this game, it kind of tenderizes Florida a little bit for Mississippi State next week. Georgia at Auburn, I've told you guys before, it's one of my favorite rivalries in the Southeastern Conference, and always tried to find a way to watch this game. If I was covering a game, I DVR'd it. The games are always incredibly entertaining. I don't know if you've kept up with it. And it makes a lot of sense. Even though they're not in-state rivals, they're not too terribly far from each other. And so you recruit a lot of the same players. And so as a result, a lot of those players know each other and have some connections. But it is a great rivalry. And there's a lot riding on these next 2 weeks for Auburn, and Hugh Freeze for that matter. I think it's pretty safe to say that, things are not necessarily sunny on the plains. But when you go back and you look at this, it's Georgia leads the series 65-56-8. And 2 years ago, Auburn should have beat Georgia. Now, they have played every year for a long time. And probably, again, one of those things that goes back to the infancy of the SEC. It just made a lot of sense, geographically. Georgia has not lost to Auburn since the regular season game of 2017, and then they redeemed themselves with a win in the SEC championship. So just kind of going back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So, yeah, Georgia's won 11 of the last 12. And really, last 15 years, it has really gone the way of Georgia. Auburn with just 3 wins in 15 years and 15 meetings against them. So we're going to go with Georgia again just because I think the quarterback situation at Auburn is still so incredibly unsettled. Georgia, a 3.5-point favorite. We're going to take Georgia to win and cover. I think this will be an interesting game. And it's kind of, we mentioned, a couple years ago, Hugh Freeze and them should have won the game. They should have. It got crazy late, and Georgia wins 27-20. I think it'll be a similar game. I think it'll be a game until the fourth quarter, and I think in the end that Georgia is a little bit better and a little more talented. And I think that will show in that fourth quarter as they try to kind of put this thing away. Georgia's one of those teams, it's just so hard to close them out. Ask Tennessee, right? I mean, Georgia seemed completely out of it late, and then they found a way to go down and get a tie, force overtime, and win the ball game. So does Auburn have what it takes to finish? Yeah, I don't know. And I think, again, we talk about these next couple of weeks for Auburn, and this doesn't even include the Iron Bowl, But there's a couple of big games coming up here. Georgia and Missouri, both of those games at home. And I think if you're Hugh Freeze, you got to win at least one of them. But if you could win them both, you feel a whole lot better about life because the schedule down the stretch is very favorable. After Georgia, Missouri, you go to Arkansas. By that time, you'll kind of have a pretty good idea of what they're running. You host Kentucky, who is very offensively challenged. You got to go to Vanderbilt. That could be a toss-up game. Then you get Mercer. That's a dub, right? But if you want to get bowl eligible, you got a really good chance to do it. But you probably need to get one of these next two to ensure that. And I think at 6-6, I don't know that that's enough, especially if you go 6-6 and get hammered in the Iron Bowl, and that's certainly a possibility. All right, let's take a look at the final game of the day. South Carolina is at LSU. LSU's favored by 9.5, and I can tell you, I kind of agonized over this one. I really, really did. Because of the fact LSU has just been so incredibly inconsistent on offense. It's one of those things you look at and you just kind of scratch your head about. But I'm taking South Carolina to cover. I think LSU wins. LSU's favored by 9.5. But I just feel like South Carolina is probably one of those teams that understands kind of what's at stake now for them. There's really any question about that. They understand that things are a little bit crazy right now. And if you can find a way to go steal one at OSU, you feel a lot better about life. Now, what's interesting, the injury report, I don't know that it really favors either one of them. But LSU's got Gabriel Relaford is out. But outside of that, there's a possibility of most everybody playing. Paul Mabenga, an offensive lineman, is doubtful for the game. South Carolina's got some guys on the offensive line that are banged up. That LSU front, maybe not what it has been, still very good. I just think that this is one of those games that I think Shane Beamer will find a way to make it competitive. I just don't think they've got the juice to win in Tiger Stadium. But, man, LSU has been so anemic offensively. You just got to think, man, if we can just get a couple of stops, we can make this game competitive. And I think they're capable of doing that. So again, we're going to take LSU to win, but LSU to win, but South Carolina to cover. And listen, it's not a big deal for LSU to beat South Carolina. It's a huge deal for South Carolina to beat LSU. They've only met 21 times, and South Carolina's won 2. Yeah, that's the things you look at, and you kind of begin to ask yourself, when's the last time? Well, the last time was 1994. And a lot of that's because of the wisdom of the SEC office to not have a more advantageous scheduling rotation, because we had to take care of Tennessee and Alabama. We had to take care of that game that nobody else cares about. Everybody in every sport was negatively impacted by that. You ever want to talk about how there are people in Birmingham that are too beholden to Alabama? That's the one thing that it's difficult for people to explain. That you hold the rest of the conference, and again, it's so crazy to think that South Carolina and LSU have been in the same conference all these years, and as SEC opponents, they've played less than 20 times. Just doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't. So we'll see how things go. But I don't know that they've got enough to finish. I do think they've got enough to make this game competitive. And you go back and look at last year, that game between LSU, a lot of people were upset about that. LSU wins at 36-33. Some controversy in that game, some calls that were a little bit sketchy. South Carolina should be motivated for the game. Absolutely should be motivated for the game. I don't think there's any question that they're capable of putting up a fight here. But when you start working through these numbers for LSU, I mean, it's just you would expect LSU to be able to just run over everybody. They haven't been able to do that. And they've been a little bit defensive about that too. I don't remember a time when LSU did not have a great running game or have a running back that you look at and you say, that guy is a difference maker. I don't know that anybody can look at that and say, that's really the case this year. I think most of you would agree with that. But looking at scoring offense for LSU, averaging 27 points a game. There are only 3 teams beneath them in the SEC. South Carolina is 1 at 24.8. So basically the same. Total defense, LSU much better, right, than South Carolina. But, we look at this, the rushing stuff. This is the thing that, again, you just expect LSU to be an elite offense. And, again, Mississippi State actually outpacing the Tigers by over 30 yards a game. Rushing offense, LSU is next to last in the SEC in rushing offense, averaging 104 yards a game. South Carolina is 16th, averaging 100 yards a game. So maybe this is a game that's won through the air. And with the quarterback injury and everything that they're talking about there, we'll see how it goes. But I think that's going to be a nip and tuck game. And I think, again, it's going to be a fun day for us to be home and just kind of enjoy college football. There's no danger to Bulldogs losing, so you can just kind of sit around and get some honeydew stuff done in the morning and then kind of get to work on your vegetative state in the afternoon. I'd encourage you on Friday, go ahead and buy your snacks and whatever you plan to enjoy, and just don't even leave the house on Saturday. You know what I'm saying? Those are good days when you don't have to leave the house and you don't have to spend any money. And maybe if you want to spend some money, maybe just DoorDash some food or order some pizza and just have a good day. We've already won the bye week, right? And I can't remember who it was, and if I wrote it, I'd give him credit. It's a guy in my mentions when we put the news out there about after Levy said that Fluff was not a season-ending injury. And this guy says, man, it's only Tuesday and we've already won the open date. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And thank you for your support and your mention. Again, I wish I'd give you credit for it. I just have time to go back and look. But that's how it felt, right? When we got done Tuesday, you think to yourself, man, now I can just enjoy the week. And I want to commend Jeff Levy, too. Jeff Levy was under no obligation to provide an update on Fluff Bothwell. There was no obligation at all, right? And week to week, he says, we're going to just let the availability report speak for us. Well, we don't have an availability report this week because we have an open date. But Jeff Levy understood how concerned all of you were about Fluff Bothwell and about our football program, and he was very frank with us. And again, under no obligation to provide an injury update, but he did. He did. Now, weeks before we got into SEC play, he would kind of mention some injury stuff. So we thought, hey, we'll go to the well here. But at the end of the day, Jeff Lebby wanted to communicate that for your benefit. He wanted you all to know, here's where we sit, right? And I think that says a lot about him as a coach and the fact that he cares about our fan base and didn't want you guys to have to live with this, in the clouds until we got to next Wednesday. That's a long time for us to agonize. So now that we know that Fluff is going to be back at some point, now we can really just kind of enjoy open week football. All right, it's time for our Close with Blair Player of the Day. And it's going to be unconventional. We're going to go with Jeff Lebby. And I'll tell you why after the commercial break here. But Blair Chandler is my friend, your friend, our collective friend in the mortgage industry. And I think friends should have each other's numbers. Blair's phone number is 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344. Save that number in your phone as mortgage guy because you never know when you're going to need him. Maybe you need him now. 24 years, nearly 25 years of experience in the mortgage lending origination business. Nobody stays in a meat grinder of a profession like that by accident. Blair knows how to get things done. He can be your advocate with underwriting. He knows how to construct loans to give you the best chance at approval. And maybe, if you're not quite there yet, he can devise a plan to help you get there, to make the dream of home ownership come true for you. Get that pre-qualification letter. You want to see your real estate agent go into overdrive? Yeah, get that approved financing. That way they know exactly what price range we're looking for. Last thing you want is to be shopping above your means. There's no point in buying a house that you got to spend overtime to pay for and you never have any time to enjoy it. Find a home that works for you and your finances, and Blair Chandler can help that dream come true for you. Visit him at closewithblair.com. Whether you're looking for your first home, your next home, or your retirement home, or perhaps that game day condo that may prove to be more affordable than you think, Blair Chandler, the only name to know at closewithblair.com. I mentioned Jeff Lebby. We talked about how well he handled the Fluff Bothwell thing. But also, too, we've got 5 decommitments now. And again, that is a byproduct of our own roster management, okay? Jeff Lebby could have delegated that to a staffer. He could have got with the position coach, but he didn't. He did it himself. And I think that speaks well of Mississippi State. It's never a tidy undertaking when you have to move on from a young man that has chosen your school. But Jeff did it. Allowed these young men the opportunity to have the month of October and November to kind of reboot their recruitments. There are going to be other schools that wait and do it in December. I think it speaks well of Jeff Lebby that he had the fortitude to pick up the phone as the leader of our football program and just kind of explain the lay of the land and why we had to make some difficult decisions. Now, some would say, you know what, Steve, we're still out here offering players, and that's true, but not very many. We're offering players that needs are a little more emergent. And that's why you make a little room. Jeff Lebby is obviously in a position where you got to get players that can help you win next year. There's some high school players out there that may be able to do that. And the more unmerciful thing is to stick with a decision that maybe was tenuous at best to begin with and to get them here and waste some of their eligibility. If they can't play here, it's better for them to go find a place to play elsewhere. So again, I commend him for making the difficult decision and then communicating that decision himself. It says a lot about the leader of our football program, Coach Jeff Lebby. All right, time for today's top 10 list. Brought to you as always by Kalito Guitars. I'm having a ball with my guitar from Kalito Guitars. You should too. You owe it to yourself to enjoy life a little bit. You know, you work hard, you pay bills, you raise kids. I mean, there's just so many things that are going on in the world. And it's good to take a little time to yourself. I see it as kind of my self-care. And I'm not nearly as good as I want to be. But I enjoyed just kind of getting out, plugging in, and enjoying the opportunity to make a little music. You know, that's my feeling. You may feel differently yourself, and that's okay. But stringed instruments That's exactly what you want to be, right? You still want to have the opportunity, of course, to remember that you're not dead yet. You know, that's one of those things. It's so easy to get on the whole hamster wheel of just paying bills and raising kids, and then, you know, you don't always do something that makes a lot of sense for you and give yourself a little bit of enjoyment. And so Kalido Guitars, the only way to go. Visit KalidoGuitars.com, CALIDO Guitars.com, if I can get it out. Level of service unmatched. Selection superior. Whether you're looking for a beginning guitar, an intermediate guitar, or a professional grade guitar, you can find everything you need to scratch that itch at Kalido Guitars. Whether it be gig bags or strings, accessories, cables, anything you need as a guitar player, you can find at Kalido Guitars. And I recommend them so highly because my interactions with them since we began this relationship have been top shelf. They came to Star Gold, they met with me and said, hey, we'd like to be a part of this. We are a Mississippi State owned and operated company out of Lake Jackson, Texas. And when you're in that neck of the woods, you can stop by and see their showroom. If you can't make it down there, visit them online at KalidoGuitars.com. They're going to give you some incentive to do so. Whether you're buying in person, over the phone, or online, this promo code works for you. It's BSR. You know it well. That opens up a lot of savings for you. 10% discount right out of the gate. No shipping. I mean, we could go on, and we will, but we could stop right there, and it's already worth your time and effort to do business with them. But that promo code also gets you no sales tax, unless you live in the state of Texas. And they make a 5% donation of your purchase price to the Bulldog Excellence Fund. Isn't that great? You get a premium instrument at a discounted price, and Mississippi State benefits from the purchase. That is absolutely wonderful. Be sure and check them out today, KalidoGuitars.com. I am loving my Steve Vai original. Absolutely love it. Sometimes I just put it on and just love the way it looks on me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, then I just love it. I love how it feels in my hands, and I could not be happier with it. Make your own self happy and get yourself a new instrument today from Kalido Guitars. Okay, I went back and looked. That's why I was a little bit distracted the first part of the read there, to see who made the recommendation, and I couldn't find it. We've tweeted a lot, as we normally do. But top 10 bands who have never headlined. Great bands that never headlined. Now, this took a little research, and I had to kind of depend a little bit on AI to help me find some bands. I think we worked it out okay, though. Now, we're going to start with number 10. This may be a band you don't know well, and maybe you should. You know, that's one of those things I love about doing these lists, is because it reminds me of some old bands that I used to love, or maybe it kind of brings some bands that I'm not quite as familiar with, kind of into greater focus. So we're going to start with number 10, a band from Memphis, Tennessee. Alex Chilton, you guys know him well, right? Alex Chilton's one of those guys a lot of people believe was kind of like the forerunner of alternative music in some respects. He was the lead singer of the band called Big Star. And of course, you know, Chilton was originally the vocalist for the Box Tops, you know, the Letter, the original version of the Letter, not the Joe Cocker version. Pretty incredible stuff. But Big Star is one of these bands that is very, very solid, especially the 70s catalog. I love it. I think you will too. I'm going to give you a gateway song, and I think once you hear this song, you're going to say, you know what, Steve, I need to investigate the catalog more. It's a track called 13. It's about a teenage guy taking a girl out, and there's just a lot of things with all of that. I'm going to get some tickets to the dance, and we're going to go. But, man, the vibe behind this song is so incredible. I think you're going to dig it. Number 9, a band, the name itself kind of lends you to think that maybe it's more of an 80s hair metal band. It's not. It's Roxy Music. But they're really more of an alternative rock, college rock band. Had a huge following, but never headlined. You know the song More Than This. That's going to be your number 9 track today. And number 8, we talk about riff masters all the time. We do. And you guys know as well as I do, like if you're a rock fan, you know some songs by riffs, right? And right out of the gate, you know what? I've kind of got my hands on something here that may be a little different. And that's kind of the Kinks, right? Right when I say the Kinks, you already start thinking about some songs out there that you know pretty well. And we're going to go with You Really Got Me, because it's one right out of the gate, you know exactly where you are. That was their third single and became an international hit in the United States, of course, over in England. But they've had a lot of hits over the years, but that's the one that just kind of, I think, was a breakthrough song for them. But incredibly, the Kinks, always an opening act. Number 7, and many of you that were big fans of college radio remember this band, and you dig this band, and ironically, they did a song called Alex Chilton. How about that? That's not going to be our pick, though. It's a band called The Replacements. And right now, I know Coley Welburn, a guy that listens to the show regularly and enjoys the top 10 list, he's jacked because I can promise you he's a Replacements fan. But we're going to go with Can't Hardly Wait from The Replacements as your number 7 track. Now, again, Coley, stay with me here because I'm speaking your language. Number 6, a band that was kind of an acquired taste for me. But to this day, they are one of the more influential bands from the early 120 minutes era of MTV. And some of you are like, I don't remember that, Steve. Well, you're not an OG. But 120 minutes was like very much the college radio alternative scene. They were really the forerunner for alternative music. And there were a lot of bands that were on smaller labels that didn't get a lot of airplay that basically owe a lot of their success to MTV. This is one of those bands. They broke in the United States because of MTV, as many bands did, but it's the Smiths. Of course, Morrissey fronted the band, had a very kind of, I don't know if you'd even call it angsty solo album, but How Soon Is Now? We're going to go with that. I think that is the gateway song to the Smiths. But vocally, he's very different. But I tell you, the guitar riffs on this Smith stuff, like you think about The Cure and some of that early Depeche Mode stuff that wasn't quite so synth poppy, that's kind of where they fall. And I think you're going to have fun with it. Number 5, a legendary band, The Velvet Underground. Now, again, another band that is considered legendary. There was never a true headliner. Now, there are a lot of these bands that we're talking about that, they opened clubs, but they didn't do arenas. And when they did those arenas and things like that, it was just, it was a little different deal, And I think that's an important thing to consider too. So if you didn't go out on the road, I'm sitting here trying to pull this thing up here again. But Velvet Underground, of course, out of New York City, but very much a part of kind of the late 60s psychedelic, rebellious type thing. Maybe that's correct. Maybe that's what we're willing to go with. But, they're a band that got things done. Absolutely. And, of course, they had that great album with Nico, too, who was very, very, very much a sex symbol of the day. But, we're going to go with Oh Sweet Nothing from the Velvet Underground. Yeah, and this is one of these bands, too, that has a tremendous influence on the 60s. Lou Reed, a part of it, too, as you guys are aware. Number 4, another band that was influential but never really got their due. A band that Kurt Cobain said really kind of led him to be a musician. Of course, he was a roadie for the Melvins for a while, but the band that he said, his own words, the band that he ripped off was the Pixies. This is a band, too, I think that got a lot more notoriety because of the rise of Nirvana, because of Kurt Cobain's willingness to say, you know what, this is a band that really influenced me. And Kurt turned a newer generation on to the Pixies, even though the Pixies were really kind of more of a thing in the 80s. But Whereas My Mind is a song from the late 80s that still gets some airplay. Number 3, we talk about Southern rock a lot on the show. A band that went out and did a lot of dates with a lot of notable musicians, but never really kind of got over the hump. But a lot of people know them, and you'll know this song, maybe not by name, but you'll know it by sound when you hear it. It's Little Feat's Dixie Chicken. I promise you, you'll know it, and you'll enjoy it. You're like, oh, I never knew that was the name of that song. Number two, another band that is very familiar to Mississippi State folks because of the More Cowbell skit, right? Now, we're not going to use that song, obviously, which is Don't Fear the Reaper, but we are going to talk about Blue Oyster Cult, a band that opened for just about everybody, but never found their way into like a headlining opportunity as a major act. And we're going to go with a track that I think maybe is underplayed, even though it was a huge hit, but it's Burning for You. I love the guitar on this one, absolutely, start to finish. It's a very interesting song, and it's time to play B-sides, right? If you know it, you know it. Number one, though, and you knew we couldn't get through a list like this without some hair metal. Now, a lot of people would say, well, Steve, what about Tesla? Tesla headlined multiple times. I still think they're one of the most underappreciated bands of the 80s. If you're looking for just a great, straight rock and roll band, that's them, right? They were not a hair metal band. They just happened to be of that era. They toured with many of those bands, but Tesla was more universally loved more than many of their contemporaries because there just wasn't a lot of gimmick with them. The Beach had this whole thing about no machines. Everything they played was live, and they could pull it off live. A lot of other bands were kind of studio creations, and then live, it was kind of a mess. But Tesla is a band that is still touring, still putting out music. But your number one amazing rock band that never headlined is Dokken. It's true. It's true. You can go back and check me on this. They never headlined a major tour. They did play some headlining gigs in clubs, but never went out at arenas. And that used to be the big thing, right? So Ozzy takes out Motley on Too Fast for Love, right? Or on Shout at the Devil. And then Motley takes out Rat on Theater of Pain. Well, then Rat takes out Bon Jovi on Invasion of Your Privacy. Then Bon Jovi takes out Cinderella on Slippery When Wet. Then Cinderella becomes a headliner, and several people open for them, like Kix and White Lion and people like that. Dokken never had that ascension. And if you know guitar, you know George Lynch, and you know there are some riffs that are kind of unique to George, it's really kind of a shame that Dokken didn't get more acclaim. They sold a bunch of records, but they never truly kind of fit that hair metal sound, even though they had the hair metal look. And George Lynch even talked about that. He goes, oh, what's Motley Crue going out with? Oh, VO5, get 10 cases of that. You know, they tried to kind of fit in really into a genre where I think technically they might have been better musicians than many of their contemporaries. Jeff Pilson on bass, of course, Mick Brown on drums. A phenomenal band. And I just heard this song yesterday. It's Dokken's It's Not Love. That's your number one track off Under Lock and Key. It's a great, great album. My favorite Dokken album, Under Lock and Key, is actually number two. Back for the Attack is my favorite. The problem Dokken had too is Don and George always had these bouts over creative control. And so there'd be times that they wouldn't go out. There'd be times that they would delay a record deal. And if they'd been able to get along, I think Dokken is one of those bands that more people would be bigger fans of. I love them. I still love them. I love everything that George has done. I love all the Lynch Mob stuff. I think it's great. I think the Lynch Mob catalog is as good or better than a lot of the Dokken stuff. And maybe you're somewhat unfamiliar with that, but you should be. But that's my top 10 list. So again, I went back and looked. I couldn't find your Twitter handle. But thanks for the suggestion. I hope I did it justice. And it's so interesting, too, like a lot of these bands that I was thinking, like, you know, White Lion, bands like that, they did do some legs where they were headliners, even though that wasn't a regular thing. Like, everybody looks like at the 80s, you say, well, you know, Motley and Bon Jovi and Rat. At some point, everybody had their moment in the sun, but some of those bands later in the 80s never kind of achieved that. I mean, I remember going out with, when Warrant went out with Motley on the Dr. Feelgood tour, and then like a year later, Warrant was back in Jackson with Trickster and Firehouse. And how great was that? And I don't know that Firehouse ever headlined. What's so interesting, too, about Firehouse is C.J. Snare is friends with my friend Steve Blaze. And God rest CJ's soul. But after we had Lillian in for Rock Vegas, Firehouse's booking agent hit me up and said, hey, our buddies in Lillian had such a good experience. If you do this next year, we'd like to be considered. And wouldn't that have been cool to bring Firehouse? But I just don't know if Firehouse would have drawn the crowd, but we'd have sold some tickets. But I think it'd have been super cool. But I got to book shows based on what sells and not necessarily what's my favorite. We were actually having some discussions with some people repping Save and Able and Hinder. And so that was kind of the direction I was leaning towards. And then, of course, John Cohen leaves for Auburn, and we kind of got to revisit our plan. But you never know. Rock Vegas may make a reappearance again at some point. But I'd love to have like a hair metal festival in Starkville. I think it'd be great. But I don't know that everybody agrees. But that's the top 10 list for today. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out, let us know. You never know, we may use your idea. You can find me on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R, which is what this listener did. Or you can hit up Roy Samonti, my friend, who is responsible for keeping these lists together. And it was his idea to put them on Spotify in the first place. Follow him on Twitter at Dogmatic67. That's DAWGMATIC 67. And you can find our great list on Spotify under that same handle. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. We love Campus Bookmart. And why? Well, they got what we want. We can never get enough Mississippi State merch. I don't care if you got a closet full of it. Make room for more. You want more, so you should have more. And you can get more at Campus Bookmart. Next time you're in town, go by and see their smiling faces, whether you're looking for new apparel, looking for gift ideas, a housewarming gift, a wedding gift, maybe a gift for yourself, birthday gift, Christmas gift. Mom, let me remind you, you only got like 2 months and a couple weeks before Christmas. Go ahead and be that mom. Get ahead of the game because you know you're always going to win when you buy Mississippi State gear. You know it. Everybody's going to have a great Christmas when it's a maroon and white Christmas. Don't overthink it. Just stick with the winners at Campus Bookmart. If you can't make it to town or see their smiling faces, visit them on the World Wide Web, courtesy of Al Gore's Internet, at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than 75 bones, absolutely incomplete. You know what's interesting? I had a guy one time, one of our listeners years ago, he sent me basically like a crossword puzzle or like a word find with like different phrases that I used on the show. Yeah, which is, I think was so cool, right? I don't know that I maybe praised him enough. It was like back during COVID, I think. But pretty cool thing, you know. And again, maybe he's got more time on his hands than most. But I thought it was pretty cool. So to Sir, if you're still listening, thank you. Thank you for that. I don't know that I praised you enough back then. I thought we were all going to die, you know. So maybe I wasn't as grateful as I should have been. I don't know. Maybe I did send a nice message back. I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember that. And I remember that whole thing about the 75 bones. I remember that being in there. But anyway, I wanted to share with you guys kind of some disturbing news that I heard today. Kind of about some of these walk-on media people in my industry. Now, and I say that, some people think that I say that out of disrespect or contempt. That's not really the case, but at some point, you know, we are just trying to make it, right? You're just trying to break into this industry, and it can be difficult. I can tell you, I get resumes at least once a week and sometimes twice a week, you know, from people that are actually college-educated journalists that would rather work in our line of work. You know, we do pay well, but also, too, I mean, it's not quite so time restrictive. Most of the guys that work for me, you know, they get a couple stories done a day, hang on a message board a little bit, they kind of call it a day. You know, it's not like you got to write 4 or 5 stories a day. Sometimes you do. But used to, like the print media people used to look down upon us. And I was discussing this earlier. I remember a time we couldn't get credentialed for the state championship games. They said we had to be print media. We were the only people covering recruiting, man. And because there was some people with some antiquated notions about media, we couldn't get credentialed. And then Todd Kelly left the Clarion Ledger and was head of media relations for the Mississippi High School Activities Association. They changed their policy. They've been great with us ever since. I can't speak highly enough. Every time we go down to Mississippi Alabama All-Star practice, I run into Johnny Mims and all those people. They're great to us. They understand that we have our heart in the right place, and we're trying to help the student athletes of Mississippi get some exposure the right way. What I'm about to tell you is the wrong way. So there are several high schools in Mississippi that are now going through a credentialing, if I can say it right, credentialing process. You're having to apply for credentials to cover high school games. We have no problem with that, right? The only problem we have with it is you don't always know who requires you to request credentials ahead of time. Because like it used to for years, we just show up, show our media pass, and we get in. Well, some people out there are convoluting that process. And let's be honest about this. Like when I go to these high school games, I'm nice to everybody. I do my best to be, right? And it's a work for me. It is. Because like usually it's a teacher that's just sitting up front there, pulling tickets, right? I mean, it's just somebody that's putting in a little overtime for the betterment of the school. They don't have a discerning nature about themselves. Somebody shows up and says, hey, I'm in the media. They say, okay, go ahead. Because most people believe everybody is who they say they are. Now, there are a lot of people out there these days that are basically hustling, right, these kids. Now, I don't want to come across hypocritically because, we've made a lot of money covering recruiting, but we are a legitimate media entity. We do not charge the kids or their families to cover them. Anybody can sign up for our website. They can do it monthly. Everybody's treated the same. We can't give them free access. That would be considered an impermissible benefit. But every time that a kid commits to us, we make the story free so the family can share it, the good news with other people. Of course, we create graphics for free. So I want to tell you about this, what I've learned, and I've talked to some other people within my industry, people that I have known for decades. We have got people that are not legitimate media people that are passing themselves off as members of the media. And they go to high school football games or basketball games or whatever, and they'll take pictures of the kids and then in turn want to sell those pictures to the kids or their families. Every picture that I take of every prospect, we give to them. We just give it to them. I don't care. We don't even watermark it. We just give it to them because I feel like, hey, we're taking a picture of you. You should have rights to that picture too. Now, I own the copyright on it, but I don't go enforce that, right? I mean, of course, if a rival company used my photograph, I would have issue with that. But as far as the kid going and putting it on their Instagram, it's special, man. It is. They can have it. I mean, I've got a very expensive camera, and I think I take pretty good pictures. But there are other people out there that are taking pictures of these kids and then trying to sell it to them. And then they'll take video of the kid and they'll say, hey, we got this highlight video and we'll feature it on our social media platform for X number of dollars. Well, that's kind of silly too because every kid now has access to Huddle. But it gets worse. It gets worse. As I'm told today by a friend of mine that I've known for 20 years, he has DMs. And it's maybe something that we need to dig into. You know me, I'm not afraid to, I don't ever run from a tussle. I don't mind asking the difficult questions. That there are some people out there that are a, quote, media team, and they go out and they follow certain 7-on-7 teams around the country, and they take pictures and videos, and they put on their social media platform, and they're charging up to $1,500 per kid. And if you're on the team and you don't pay, guess what? You don't get your pictures and video, right? So you can begin to imagine there's 15 to 20 kids on every 7-on-7 team, sometimes more. So it's a nice little racket. And what's happened is people have convinced these kids and their parents in some situations, hey, this is what you need to do to be recruited. Let me tell you this. Nobody, and I mean nobody, in college football is going to offer you a scholarship based on what you do in a t-shirt and shorts. It's not going to happen. what you do on Friday night is what is going to get you recruited. Now, you come to camp and you work out in camp in that t-shirt and shorts, that can help validate the Friday night performance. But if you go to a 7-on-7 tournament where college coaches are not able to attend, and just because somebody puts a video out there on Instagram, it's not going to help you get recruited. Now, some people would say, but Steve, there's ladder of awareness stuff, and I absolutely agree with that. There is ladder of awareness stuff. The more of a presence you have on social media, that's a great thing. But the reality of it is oftentimes these people are getting exploited. And so if you begin to kind of work through that aspect of it, I can absolutely understand why some schools within the state of Mississippi and beyond are saying, no, we're not going to allow these people to be on our sidelines anymore. And you know what? Bravo for them. Yeah, it's an extra step for me and my crew and all of our people, like at On3 and people like that. It's an extra step in the process. But if it protects the student athletes, I'm absolutely in favor of that. Now, we had a situation where it kind of bit us in the butt. You know, we were kind of unaware, and we sent one of our guys down to Oak Grove, and he wasn't able to get access. Now, I might have been able to kind of smooth talk my way in because I'm a little more well known. But the reality of it is we are okay, absolutely okay, with taking other steps and abiding by maybe a little more complicated process. You know, my first experience with this was last year at Tupelo, and reached out to coach and said, hey, I want to come get video of JJ and some of the guys there. Of course, Tupelo's got, probably a dozen SEC prospects on their roster. And so I went and took pictures. But before I did, I had to apply for credentials through Tupelo's athletic department. And Greg Ellis, of course, a name that you all know, a guy that we love, had to give me a credential. And he goes, hey, you just keep that the whole year. Anytime you want to come back, you have it. I know you, but you have to have it. The security people are going to be looking for that. You won't get access to the field if you don't have it. And so that was my first experience dealing with that on a high school level. But now it's begun to spread. And I think it's a good thing. Because here's the thing, and I think everybody wants to be recruited. Everybody wants to be recruited. And many of these young people are desperate. And so you turn around and you look, okay, well, all my friends have offers. I'm not even getting letters. I'm not getting DM'd from Division I coaches. And so people then in turn kind of prey upon their desperation and say, hey, we'll help you with this. Let me tell you another part of this. There are some people out there, and we've encountered that recently. There are some people out there, and this is a practice that has gone on for a long time. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to have to deal with them. There are some people out there that are advising kids to claim offers they don't have. Because the thinking behind that is like, well, if you have an SEC school that has offered you, well, then maybe some other schools, maybe Memphis or UAB or a school that maybe is more commensurate with your ability, will at least begin to reach out. That area coach will say, hey, I didn't realize that kid was SEC good. Maybe we should take another look. I had some experience with that years ago, back when we were living in Baton Rouge. I guess it's been there 20 years ago now. There was this one player out of Chicago that was claiming an offer from Mississippi State. And so it makes its way to my inbox from somebody at scout.com and says, hey, this kid's got an offer from Mississippi State. Might be a good content opportunity. So I call the kid, and he's claiming like 40 offers. He ends up signing with Southeast Missouri State. Yeah, the offers weren't real. And then we had a situation with somebody within the state that would call members of our staff under the Dan Mullen era and say, is it okay if these players claim offers from you? They won't try to commit or anything. I'm just trying to create some buzz. And they were told, no, you can't tell them they got offers. Well, sometimes this individual did. And then these offers weren't committable. This person at time would hit me up and say, hey, Mississippi State just offered this quarterback. Well, of course, I have sources, so I go find out, no, that wasn't the case. The whole thing's a shell game. And then they go in turn, go to these other parents and say, yeah, you need to ride with me, Mr. Street Agent, because I got these kids offered by Mississippi State. I got these kids offered by Ole Miss, right? And it wasn't true. And the thing, I go back to Melvin Smith. Melvin Smith taught me a ton about recruiting years ago. I mean, I probably learned more about recruiting by talking to Melvin Smith than I have anybody ever. And of course, things have changed a little bit, but some of the principles remain the same. And he goes, Steve, there's never anything wrong with a kid thinking he has an offer from us. There's nothing wrong with him thinking that. But when a kid tells me he has offers that I know he doesn't have, I don't want to recruit that kid. And I was like, well, really, why is that? He goes, if I can't trust him over something like this, I certainly can't trust him about something of importance. And that's kind of what happens. People get involved with these kids, and, I'm not going anywhere. We're going to continue to do things the right way, and we're going to do our best to kind of restrict some of that. But I'll give you another example. We recently had, this year, within the last few months, we had a kid that wanted to commit to Mississippi State. He had already committed, but he hadn't announced his decision. The delay in the announcement was he had paid one of these harebrained Instagram editors to make him a graphic. And the graphic, quote, wasn't ready yet. And so it took days. And of course, we offer, Nathan Purvis does our graphics. We do it for free. We don't charge the kids anything. We do it for free. And he does a tremendous job. Nathan Purvis, I hired him to be our graphics guy. He's now the official graphics guy of the All-American game. All these All-American Bowl invites that you see, those graphics, they're made by Nathan. So he's been able to kind of parlay this opportunity into something else. We don't charge the kids anything. And so what I'd really like to see us do is like run those people out of business, right? Because essentially they're interfering with the recruiting process. And so this particular young man is like, yeah, I'd love to have that free graphic, but I've already paid for this. I want my graphic that I paid for. And I don't blame him. He said he went back and tried to get his money back, and he said, oh no, I'll have it done today. And then the next day goes by. It's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. And so if you are any way connected to a student athlete, I don't care what sport it is, I don't care what school your kid's committing to, we'll make your graphic for free. I don't want there to be a market for these people. And there always will be a limited market. It's one thing if it's a friend or a classmate, I get that. But we got people out here taking these kids' money. And then think about that for a second. Mississippi State had to have a commitment delay their announcement because of some dude on Instagram. Think about the totality of that, the bigness of that Mississippi State, who needs all the good press we can get on the recruiting trail, had to be delayed because of that. It's ridiculous, man. There are a lot of people that interlope into areas that they shouldn't be. This is one of them. And so I'm sharing all of this with you because I want you to know, and I'll tell you something else too, like when I used to do the combines, and man, we did a bunch of them. Man, we had thousands of kids, and Mississippi kids, and from all over the Southeast that came. We did a bunch of them in Tupelo. We did some in Brookhaven. We did some on the coast. We did some in the Delta, and they were all important. We never charged a kid a dime. Every kid that came got a shirt, got objective third-party measurements and times, got a Scout.com profile, had a chance to work with other coaches, and a chance to get their information released. And then every year we sent all of the results of the combine for free to about 40 different college programs, including all the Mississippi junior colleges and the HBCUs. We were just trying to help the kids. And so when I see these people out here charging these kids $50 to go to a combine, number one, it's a joke, right? There are enough great high school coaches in the state of Mississippi that are willing to volunteer their time to help the student athletes of Mississippi. I know because they've done it for years and years and years. Richard Russo, Coach Russo, did nearly all of my combines. Wyatt Rogers, Will Rogers' dad, coach the quarterbacks and the offense of the combine we did at Canton Academy. And so I say that because everybody has an excuse, right? I can promise you nearly every high school coach in Mississippi, just to get their kids there, to get their kids some exposure, to get their kids, Scout.com or a 247 profile, they're willing to come put an afternoon in and hold a stopwatch or hold a tape measure. But if you're charging people $50, and then the results aren't posted anywhere online, the kids don't get a profile with your respective network, what are they paying for? That's the thing that just boggles my mind. I know what it takes to put these combines on, and we would have sometimes between 200 and 300 kids at the combines. I know what it takes. But we've got people out here charging the kids for stuff that should be free. And that's the thing that I hear so much from some of these people. Well, I'm just trying to help the kids. Well, why don't you help them by giving them their $50 back? Right? Because what happens, most of the kids that come to these events are not college football prospects. And that's one of the things, we did our first combine in Tupelo. I remember like it was yesterday. We had done the Scout.com combine in Mobile, done at Lad Peoples in like February. And we had everybody come. Chad Bumpus was there. We had so many players that were there. And it was cold. It's like 18 degrees. So the numbers weren't great. And it was a guy that approached me. He goes, man, you should bring one of these to Mississippi. If you want to do it, I'll get Tupelo for you. And lo and behold, Eric Collins was the coach there. And we went and we did the combine there. And I wanted to show Scout.com that we needed to have a combine in Mississippi every year. And so that very first year, we got Fletcher Cox to come. We got Tyler Russell to come. We got Chris Garrett, of course, to come. Chad Bumpus. Denias Timms came. Pat Patterson came. We had all the big-name kids. Cameron Lawrence came. Tracy Lampley came. We had all these guys that I just wanted to show them we could bring in talent. And we didn't charge them a thing. And he'd say, but Steve, times have changed. No, they haven't. People have changed because people are trying to enrich themselves on the desperation of young people trying to get recruited, and that is absolutely wrong. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle when you're bringing a large group to town, and you absolutely should. We talk about doing things for yourself. This is one of them. You owe it to yourself to come make some memories at a very unique and very nice place to stay. How great would it be to have everybody under one roof once again and do some cool stuff, right? Well, you can. Google the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. When you do, their Facebook page will auto-populate. You can peruse through all the amenities available to you and your guests. Also, some booking options come up. You can book through Airbnb, VRBO. If you want to save some money, book through the Evolve website. Use promo code BSR10. That's BSR, the number 10, 10, gets you 10% off your stay. I'm the kind of guy, you give me a promo code, you give me a discount, I'm more inclined to do business with you. It's true. It's true. You got nothing to lose. The full-service kitchen, the back porch area, the wet bar, the fire pit area, which is fabulous, 6 bedrooms, 2 bath, plenty of parking, just 5 minutes away from the Mississippi State campus, the old renovated clubhouse out past the Highlands on 182. You know the area well. And you got plenty of peace and quiet out there. We don't want you throwing a rager. You only got a couple neighbors, but you can go out there and just kind of really enjoy your people, right? You don't have to worry about interlopers and things like that. So Google the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, check it out today, and make some memories with the people you love the most. All right, let's talk a little baseball before we get out of here. For those of you that are in town, Friday, if you're looking for something to do, 6 p.m. scrimmage, open to the public, and then Saturday, 5 p.m., open to the public. And I won't be able to make the Friday scrimmage. Mike Nemeth will have full coverage, and we will be there for Saturday, and Mike will be there to provide full coverage. I like to go to watch. Even if I don't write anything, it's kind of Mike's thing. We don't really need 2 stories about a college baseball scrimmage, right? We don't. Reminder, too, We will have full coverage when the Bulldogs head to Pensacola in 2 weeks. I guess it's about, 9 days now? Yeah. So Mike will be there for us covering. We'll all be in Gainesville. And so that'll be interesting too. So we got a big enough staff. We can cover more than one event on any particular day. But what I have seen so far from the team, we'll start with you want to start with the bad? Yeah, we'll start with the bad. I've only been to a handful of scrimmages. Mike's been to all of them that have been open. And I think we've only missed one or two because of O'Connor wanted a couple of them closed. We respect that. But catching has not been elite. That's the thing right now that I think if there is one thing that concerns me, it's catching. Now, some of that, we've seen some wild pitches. Some of that, we've seen pass balls. I've seen more pass balls than I care to see. Now, some of that is just pitchers and catchers kind of learning each other. But we went in the portal and went and got 2 catchers to kind of shore up a position where basically everybody but Jackson Owen left. And so, again, it's just October 9th. We got a lot of work to do catching. A lot of work to do. A lot. Now, offensively, those guys have been pretty good. Yeah. But you and I both know that's not enough. You can hide some defensive, maybe, inefficiency at other positions. You can't at catcher. It jumps out. And for those of you that have been in scrimmages, you know what I'm talking about. And a lot of times people think these are wild pitches, and some of them are. A lot of them are pass balls, and a lot of them are wild pitches that should be blocked up. If you're going to play in this conference, you're going to have to be able to jump in front of one and block it up when we got to bury a breaking ball. You have to. We're not there yet. We're not there. Now, on the positive side, I really like what I've seen in the middle infield. Sean James is a guy, I wasn't quite sure where he fit. But at second base, he looks really comfortable. We even move Gat sometimes to short. We know what Gat can do defensively at second base. And this time last year, we were talking about Gat Sanders and what are you going to do with him? Because he was one of our best hitters in the fall last year and was probably your third-team second baseman. Well, by the end of the year, he proved to be the most consistent second baseman we had throughout the season. And it's still so interesting. We didn't settle the infield until Sawyer Roberts lost the second base job. And then Sawyer, of course, moves to short, and Gat takes over at second and just kind of holds it down. Made some very athletic plays for us. And so I think middle infield, Ryder Woodson has looked good. Wires has looked good at times. But I think we are going to have more than enough middle infielders that we're going to be very strong up the middle. Third base, of course, Ace is going to be there, but other people are having to take reps because Ace is out for the fall, rehabbing, right? And Ace is going to be fine. Everybody needs to relax. I think in some ways this may be like a silver lining because it gives us a chance to kind of get some younger guys, some reps. Wires, of course, has played some at third. I think with his bat, you've got to find a way to get him out there. And he hit a grand slam last scrimmage. Raymond hit another home run in both scrimmages. He went on Sunday and Tuesday. So I think offensively, we actually have the chance to be elite. And it's interesting. You watch these scrimmages, and you're evaluating about 20 players. Well, the best of those 9 are going to start, right? So you've got the talent somewhat diluted between 2 squads and an inter-squad scrimmage. But when you begin to kind of stack this thing up and you think about, Noah Sullivan and Ace Reese and, Wires, Woodson, of course, is a guy that's, I think, probably proven to have more bat than people anticipated. And then you think about Aiden Teal, who hadn't played. He's still in a boot right now. I think when you think about our best 9, and that's what I would encourage you to think about if you come out to a scrimmage, that the talent is kind of evenly distributed. It won't be when we get into season. We'll take the best 9 of the scrimmages and we'll put a team together. And that's where I think when you look at Maluski, big bat, huge bat, got some exit velo that's just off the charts. So I feel good about where we are offensively. I'm not worried at all about third base. First base is still kind of a work in progress. Noah Sullivan has worked some over there. Reed Stallman's a guy that could work some at first, but he's played some in left. Bevis is a guy, of course, that can work some at first, but needs some work over at first. I would say catching and first base are probably your two positions that probably need the most enhancement between now and the beginning of the season, if that makes sense. I think we'll be great at third with a healthy Ace Reese. I think we're going to be solid at the middle. I love the outfield options we have. We got a good problem to have in the outfield because we've got more guys capable of starting than we have starting positions. What do you do with Garrick Fry? What do you do with Reed Stallman? James Nunnally has done some really big things out in right. He's your future center fielder, I think, once Aiden Teal signs a pro contract in the summer. Aiden Teal, one of the more acrobatic and athletic outfielders in the country. So I have no doubt that the outfield will be strong defensively and that we'll be strong up the middle. And you know what Ace can do. And, of course, Ace played his second half of the year with a bum foot, so his push to the line wasn't always what he wanted it to be. But we got to figure out this catching and first base stuff. Now, pitching-wise, feel good about our options to start. We've got to settle some roles, I think, in middle relief and in the bullpen. We have plenty of arms to figure that out. But right now, everybody is kind of vying for a starting spot. And nobody ever aspires to be a middle reliever. Now, there are some guys out there like Tyler Davis. He just wanted the ball when the game is on the line. He just wanted it when the fire was hot, right? There's some people that just kind of make that happen. The first year here, he didn't. But that second year, he was money for us, and you guys are well aware of that. I think Justin Parker, obviously, has more talent to work with now than at any point in his Bulldog tenure. Now, that starting rotation in year one with Nate Dahm, Cal Steven, Durangelo, going to be difficult to replicate that. But how many times did you see it where we couldn't close out a game? Right? Well, things got better as we went. Last year, got a little bit better at that. But I think you've got more pieces to work with, to get those last 9 outs than maybe you've had. I just don't think some of those guys realize that's where they're going to be. Like Tyler Pitzer is a guy that comes in here with starting aspirations. He's always been a starter. And then got to South Carolina. He did a little spot starting and then kind of turned into a middle relief guy. I know he wants to start. Didn't have a great outing the other day, and that's really the first time I think that he's looked a little bit shaky. He had a great summer. And then you've got, some other guys out there that you guys are well aware of. Ryan McPherson, Charlie Foster. You feel great about those guys. And the fact that they have another year under their belt. You've got a solid nucleus of younger guys in that sophomore class that can really help you. Dane Burns is a guy that's kind of cleaning some things up mechanically, but he's got a tremendous amount of ability. I think he is probably a reliever, and I think he's perfectly okay with that. But Valenkas is going to be on the weekend. He's a bona fide Friday night guy. I don't think there's any question about that. 6'2", 225-pound left-hander. That put up some big numbers at Virginia last year, a team that came up just short of making the tournament. But he's going to be a dude. Duke Stone is a guy that I think is capable of starting, but also a guy, too, that may be a solid piece out of the bullpen. Last year, he's just kind of getting back from TJ, but had a great summer. And so far has had a really good fall. And then there's William Kirk. And he was a guy, too, that was kind of lost in the discussion a little bit. He was on pace to be the Sunday starter at Virginia last year. And they basically they had Wolfuk and they had Valenkas and then kind of figured it out. Kirk had a torn ACL. It wasn't TJ. But Kirk is a guy that had weekend stuff as a true freshman at Virginia. And I would say, based on what we've seen so far, he is certainly in that discussion to be a Sunday guy. And we'll just have to see how things kind of continue to progress. Parker Rhodes, a younger guy that's done some big things. I think he can be a bullpen piece for you. I don't really think there's any much question about that. And of course, what do you do with Jack Bauer? Well, I think you got to be a back end guy with him. And you know what Ryan McPherson can do, and Ryan's a guy too that wants to start but is always happy to close too. And he's a guy that when teams struggle with spin, he is maybe your best option out there. But you got some dudes that are back and some dudes that have come in that really give you some confidence that this rotation has a chance to be very good. And again, I think about where McPherson and Charlie fit. You feel like Valenkas and Kirk are probably in a pretty good position to hold down Friday and Sunday. Maybe you got to find a Saturday guy. We'll see. But that's why you compete. That's why you have these inter-squad scrimmages. And then you break for the fall, break for the holidays, and then you come back, and then you kind of begin to identify roles and kind of settle guys down and get them prepared for what they're going to do mentally when they take the field. But we got to grow up a little bit on the mound, but the raw material for us to be good on the mound, and I mean really good on the mound, is there. I don't really have much question about that. And when you think about the quality of this staff, Coach Kirby and McMullen and things they've been able to accomplish under Brian O'Connor, I don't worry about first base and catcher that much either, because I'm going to put that in the hands of our coaches. That's why you have the scrimmages, to figure out who you can trust and figure out maybe where they're somewhat deficient, so you can put together a developmental plan to have them full go when the season gets here. So that's how I feel about it. And, people ask me all the time, Steve, how good can we be? Well, we can be Omaha good. That's how good we can be. And I don't think you've heard me say that in about 3 years. Heading into 2022, we were all a little bit woolly. We were still kind of getting over our national championship hangover, and we had so many pieces coming back. And then we had all these injuries, and then, well, there you go. I think 23 and 24, we all kind of felt the same, that maybe we'd be a road regional somewhere. But it has been far too long since we have hosted postseason baseball at Dudy Noble Field. And I feel confident that is going to happen this year, barring something totally unforeseen. I think the depth of this team, and talking to other people that I trust around the college baseball world, there is a lot of concern about Brian O'Connor and the team and roster that he has put together for 2026. A lot of people out there that are kind of recognizing that the giant has been awakened, because now you have the coach that is very much commiserate with Mississippi State's commitment to baseball financially and certainly fan-wise. And then all of a sudden you see the level of which he's recruiting. It's definitely raising some eyebrows around the league, and I think there are some people in this league that feel like maybe their window is closing a little bit. And that's a good feeling, right? We'd love to be the hated team again. We'd love to be the feared team again. And that's the way I've always felt. I felt like Mississippi State baseball, that every visiting team should understand the best they can hope for is a one win. They're not going to win a weekend from us. They may get a game, but they're not going to win a series against us. I want fans of the Southeastern Conference planning weddings in the spring when Mississippi State baseball comes to their home venue. That's what I want to see. That's the level of respect we want to have. If you hadn't done so, visit DudyNobleBook.com, and it's still on the bestseller list. And thank you guys, a full year. I mean, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate that. It means so much to me. When I wrote that book, people were like, I don't know, Steve, it's kind of thin soup. And here we are, a full year on the Mississippi bestseller list. Incredible. Thank you so much for that. You can get signed copies of The Dude along with Flim Flam, Stark Villains, Alpha Dogs, and Dogpile, along with the personal memoir, When the Bottom Falls, which if you need a story of encouragement, that's the one to go to. All the books ordered to the website are signed. If you hadn't done so, come float with us at True Rest Float Spa of Starkville. And if you have, you need to come on back. You do. You can dial 662-268-7601 and speak to my beautiful wife, Dana. And she can answer any questions you have. If you're a person that just needs a break, or maybe you've been somewhat, intrigued about this and you want to give it a try, come do it. If you're a person that's got chronic anxiety or pain, we may be able to help you. We've helped many others. Why don't you give floating a try? And if you're worried about being claustrophobic, the pods are 10 foot in circumference, and then you can leave the pod doors open if you want to. You're in a private suite that locks from the inside, And so you're more than welcome to leave those doors open if it makes you feel more comfortable. It's completely up to you. I like to just get in there and close it, turn the light off, and just kind of zone out. That's what I like my mind to be able to sleep and kind of rest peacefully without further stimulation. And come join us over at genespage.com. We're running a 30% off the annual subscription price. If you don't want to take advantage of the promo, and you say, Steve, why would I not want to take advantage of the promo? If you're a full revenue subscriber, you get access to Paramount Plus. It's part of your subscription. Right? You join Gene's Page at the full price. You also get Paramount Plus and all their programming available to you 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. genespage.com is enough, but Paramount Plus, the cherry on top. You guys have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday, but until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies and people can see a difference in the way we live.